This week, I'm joined by John Paul, one of the co-founders of Lone Pine Brewing. Had a great conversation about how that company started, what it was like to start a beer company 8 years ago in a market that's very competitive. I was really impressed with a lot of the things that he said, and it's a great story. So if you like beer, if you're from Maine, if you like businesses and local people, I think you'll really enjoy the conversation that I had with John. This is the Randy Forcer podcast. If you can do me a favor, as always, subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. If you are listening to the podcast, one of those ways, just click the subscribe button. It takes 2 seconds. And then, like I mentioned last week, I want to step up my requests. If you can like the video, comment on YouTube. If you can leave a 5-star review or any type of review on Apple or Spotify, I would really appreciate it. Things have really been picking up steam lately, getting more and more downloads. So I think more of those sort of things will really help spread the word and what I'm trying to do here. So also on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, if you could like it there, that would be great. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much for listening. Here's John. Hey, John, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I know you're a busy guy. You're one of the co-founders of Lone Pine Brewing. Anxious to have you on the podcast. So again, I appreciate the time. I want to kind of just jump into things and learn a little bit more about your background and what led you into the brewing industry.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess just background, I grew up in Saco. I'm a Thornton Academy grad, class of '04, not to date myself. And I went to school in Boston, always kind of had entrepreneurial interests. I had joined an entrepreneurship program there. And worked at Sony throughout college too, in their college marketing department. Really learned how to launch new brands in the Massachusetts and Maine market. So learned a ton about marketing, PR, the music industry in general. And a lot of that has kind of just since translated to this. So when I moved to LA, worked at a talent agency, then ran a TV studio there, just a real small kind of B2B TV studio that was really focused on ads in the restaurant industry. So I really kind of cut my teeth on how to work with the restaurant industry in B2B sales. Once I was on the wrong side of 20, I guess you could say. Once I rounded 25, I moved back to Maine. Full transparency, I was planning to go to business school, take the GMAT, go down that path. But around the same exact time, a really good friend of mine from high school, Tom Madden, who's my business partner, and anyone who's from this greater area in Saco, Maine, knows Madden Beverage. It's kind of an institution. Tom
really is.
Yeah, Tom and his dad were kind of the craft beer mecca for Saco in general. But just to give a little context, so around that time, Tom and I got a beer at Portland Pie in Biddeford, and he had this, idea for a craft brewery named Lone Pine, and basically wanted me to partner with him on it. He'd brewed for years, and I tried a bunch of different batches that he had. I kind of honestly lived a bit vicariously, through him, learning about the craft beer world in general. So for him, he essentially didn't want to handle the outside four walls of the brewery and the sales and distribution side. So I naturally kind of lived for that side. So it was a perfect marriage in terms of, who handles what. So he basically handles the liquid, the brand, the feel of the tasting room. And I handle, the actual retail customers and business development and our wholesalers. So when Tom asked me to partner with him, I got just one of those kind of leap of faith feelings you get sometimes. I think you only get a couple in your life, but that was one of them. We knew each other forever. We used to joke as we were starting the brewery, kind of a common question, like, who do you want to go to war with? Because starting a business is basically a battle. So we just had extreme confidence in each other and our abilities and dedication. So it was kind of an easy yes for me to do it.
So cool. How long ago was that?
2015, February 2015.
It's amazing to think that Lone Pine has only been around for 8 years. It feels like longer to me.
It definitely
feels
does.
like way longer for you. Only 8 years. Holy smokes.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. But I mean, it's been great.
Who came? Oh, so Tom came up with the idea for Lone Pine. It sounded like he already had that in his head. Where did that come from?
Well, in general, you think Lone Pine, you think, the Pine Tree State, promoting individuality. Yeah. Everyone kind of has that secondary thing they chase to, whether you're a banker or hairdresser or whatever, you have kind of that second passion. And I think that's part of kind of what we tried to embody is, maybe you ski, maybe you hike, etc. We tried to really wrap that around our brand. But funny enough, there was a dog shelter down south that was called Lone Pine Shelter. And I think he subliminally caught that at some point as a name and put it on. So
love the name, dude. It fits really well in Maine. And I think the brand is a home run, just the logo.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
very clean. If you look in the background of my thing, it's like the round circle with the silhouette picture in it. It's
Yeah.
I like yours better, but it just kind of it looks great on your shirt. It looks great on all the merch. So very cool story. So you guys just kind of went to war together, like you said, and you just started from the ground floor up. It seems like that was a is that around the time that craft beer started to take off, at least in Maine? It seemed like there was breweries opening up all over the place, or did
Yeah.
it happen prior to 2015?
I mean, it already was, taking off like crazy. There was already your Bissell, your Foundation, your Rising Tide, like all those breweries had already been, around for at least a couple years.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, for us, it was we almost kind of felt a little late to the game, but now you look at it and we were still almost kind of early in some ways.
There was a lot of room to run, it seemed like, since
Yeah,
then.
yeah,
So
exactly.
how do you guys try to be creative and stay innovative with the beers that you guys are brewing? It sounds like more of a Tom question than anything, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no. I mean, there's two sides, I guess, to innovation with a consumable product. I guess there's the actual product style or flavor. So in this case, the liquid of the
Mhm.
beer, and then there's the presentation of the product, which is obviously in this case the label for the beer. So for the liquid side, I mean, we surround ourselves with great brewers, world class brewers who are already creative, and Tom's creative mind to just constantly push new beer styles and processes. We have a smaller system in Portland too, on Anderson Street where we started, where they're able to
Yeah.
try all different types of, different techniques, try different products in the beer. And, if a batch doesn't go our way, it's no harm, no foul. It's not our full production facility. So just kind of constantly pushing the limit on the liquid side in terms of process, really. Presentation wise, in terms of the can, we're constantly pushing the limit of the design on our cans. And what I mean by that is we're constantly trying to think of creative brand concepts, cultural references that consumers will latch onto, even label printing variations. Like we've printed with like gold foil on the label
Mhm.
before, so you can
Mhm.
actually feel a difference.
Is there someone you hire for that, or is that you guys thinking of these things?
So it's really internal. Yeah, I think the biggest way we've, stayed creative in all this is we never really lived in a silo. Like we're always open to collaboration with our employees and even customers. A great example is a beer that we made called T-shirt Cannon. It's a
Great, man.
Yeah, so popular IPA, super fun concept. And that entire concept, the liquid and the label was actually a brainchild of someone on our packaging team that way back in the day in like 2017, he just came to Tom with like a napkin sketch of this beer idea with somewhat of a recipe. And Tom just collaboratively, fine tuned it and pushed it over the line as a brand.
So cool. So I
Yeah.
feel like I could have a half-hour conversation just on the labels because I think they're that good. I wanna chase down the beer offerings real quick, just a little bit before I get back to that. So do you guys come into the year planning like, hey, we're gonna try 4 or 5 different new beers this year, or is it more organic than that?
So we have 4 or 5 like core product offerings that are always available. They're in chains, throughout the Northeast. We have our seasonal offering that is just gaining a ton of popularity now, which is great. And then we try to do like one specialty item, like one new item for the country for all our
Yeah.
distributors. So we'll send one item around just around the country each month. And then in the state of Maine, I mean, the gloves are off. I mean, we could have an idea today and try and get it out by, mid June. I mean, it just
Really?
really depends. Oh yeah.
So quick, like
Yeah.
month and a half turnaround? Sweet.
Yeah. And we're hyper collaborative in the community too. We work with like all the sports teams, the main,
Yeah, you're a sponsor of Maine Celtics.
yep.
So
Yep.
maybe one of the main sponsors. Like, don't you
Um,
have like a certain seating area? I feel like like there was a big partnership between you and the Maine Celtics.
yeah, the Go Green Award is the big partnership. Yeah, we recognize sustainable businesses in the community. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so any ideas that come to us, even if it's surrounding like one event or concept, we try and put pen to paper on as quickly as we can.
That's awesome. I know you guys a couple years added seltzers to your
Yep.
repertoire. Did you feel like that's just something that you had to do because everyone was kind of throwing these things out there, or what was that whole thought process like?
Yeah, I mean, full transparency, I think we were kind of a year behind. Like the seltzer market got super crowded. But yeah, we saw the trend and wanted to, jump on it. And it's actually kind of a funny story. It was during COVID and we contract brew the seltzers through a company in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So it was COVID, so they had to basically ship us extracts, get on Zoom, and we had all the same sampling gear in terms of like tinctures and measuring, and we were just measuring via Zoom for taste tests. And obviously, it's impossible to virtually really be tasting the same thing. So
Yeah.
it was a crazy, crazy way.
That's super cool though. That's
Yeah,
how that process went. But you
yeah,
settled on what you settled on, and I'm not like this huge seltzer guy, but I do feel like Lone Pine seltzer is unique in the market, the way it tastes, like compared to like some of the sweeter High
yeah,
Noon type stuff. Or yeah, I know my wife loves it, and definitely always have some kicking around in the summertime by the pool. So it's kind
yeah.
of
Yeah, we tried to make it as how can we be as close to just true like polar seltzer,
which is
with
like
like
exactly the way I would describe it. It feels like a true seltzer. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely super drinkable. So getting back to the cans,
yeah,
because I think they're all awesome. And like the OJ one, going back, all of them are great. I always see them on social media, and I just think, man, whoever came up with those is just great. I mean, I think compared to other cans that you see out there, they're very unique. So, do you have a favorite one?
Do I have a favorite one? I think just in general, our seasonal series is really my favorite. It was the first time we had to come up with like a real mass scale concept that we were
Mhm.
really tying a new part of our business plan to. And the three beers, Summer Lights, Pumpkin Party, and Winter Carnival, just all
Yeah,
look so good on a sell sheet.
yeah,
They just perfectly embody each season and flow into
yeah,
each other visually. OJ always is going to be a favorite just because that was, that beer has kind of helped make who we are.
totally.
But yeah, but they're all good. I mean, my sister is actually our designer for those
Oh,
cans.
really? I didn't know
Yep.
that. Very
Yep.
cool.
Yep. So she was in Boston, but yeah, she basically just was designing all those over time for us and did a great job.
I always liked Tessellation. It's an early one, but like I just like the triangle designs, and it was
Yep.
one of those first ones that kind of caught my eye. And I feel like they've improved so much since then. But even back then, I was like, wow, it's an awesome can, and
Yeah. Yep.
thought that was very cool. So 8 years into Lone Pine Brewing, what are some of the challenges that you face or have faced in the industry? Anything specific come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, for us, for especially for my side on the sales and distribution side, honestly, the biggest challenge was just entering the market. And it was, having that share of voice in the market and gaining market share. We had to really take our time to understand, even before opening our doors, how we would fit into an already overcrowded, market, in our opinion.
So the market's crowded in general across the country, but does Portland feel like a little more crowded? I don't know. It seems like there's,
I
or
think
is that
it's
just my own perception?
I mean, it's highly saturated, but it's also hyper competitive in terms
Mhm.
of, I mean, it's kind of hard to actually find bad liquid in this
Yeah,
town. Like everyone makes really,
great
really
stuff.
good beer. Yeah. And they just set the bar so high. But yeah, so there already was so much, incredible beer out there when we opened that launching the right way was probably the biggest challenge we faced right away.
Mhm.
And the key strategy was to do just one thing really well and to basically adopt patients to only focus on one particular strategy for a given period of time.
What was that? Your flagship beer? Was that
Exactly.
the thing?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's not fun, right? We're brewing one thing all the time. We're talking about one thing all the time, and everyone else is doing new releases every week. There's tons of breweries doing that throughout Maine every weekend. But those breweries we saw were kind of living in the same very specific kind of craft beer bars or restaurants where they already felt craft was kind of safe and well received. So yeah, we kind of did two things to go against that, I guess, and to form a new way of fitting in. One was, we brewed one beer, like you said, the
Mhm.
flagship Portland Pale. We brewed that for the first 6 or so months of our existence. And it was our sole priority for production and sales. We just built a base of like about 100 draft lines, just one by one.
Is
And
that pretty unique? Does
yeah,
everyone enter the market and try to create 100 draft lines? Because there was a time I did see. I mean, Portland Pales everywhere still, but it was everywhere pretty early on, and that was your main strategy.
yeah, it's definitely unique because we could have made a lot more money faster by just doing a bunch of new brands and,
Mhm.
having the tasting room be more full with people interested in, having 7, 8 different types of beers and taking them home. I think for us, I mean, it was painful. Even in the tasting room, we had like 2 to 3 beers on. Sometimes we literally just had Portland Pale
Yeah,
Ale.
yeah, yeah.
But we promised accounts that this brand was our priority and we'd never go out of stock, and we were very open with our business plan. And very quickly, we had actually built a real business around one brand. We
Mhm.
kind of had the freedom of not having to depend on innovation yet to create revenue.
Yeah. So you're just pounding the pavement, driving around to every restaurant, bar, hotel. I mean, is that how it works? And that's
Yeah, and that's
person's you doing that?
yeah, and that kind of dovetails into like the second part of like the strategy.
Mhm.
We focused on selling into spaces that no other small craft breweries were really looking, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. So I mean, we didn't want to just live in the hypercraft establishments. We live there. We appreciate the business, obviously, but we wanted to have Portland Pale almost be like a gateway beer into the craft beer market
Mhm.
for a new consumer. So we all of a sudden were, all of a sudden we kind of became the high end craft beer for these smaller mom and pop restaurants and dive bars that
Yeah.
literally crafted them was, Sam Adams before that.
Yeah. That's so
Yeah.
funny.
So,
Right? Yeah. Dude, I bet. I
yeah.
bet. I remember being at the Cliff House. God, I feel like it was pre-COVID, and I think you guys had an account there at some point. You probably obviously still do, right? Cliff
Yeah,
House
sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
in New York. Anyway, so I very specifically remember it. Anyways, getting Portland Pale Ale there, and just thinking like, wow, it just seemed like unexpected that it would be in a place like the Cliff House in York, and it seems like you've only grown that probably since then to the point that are you outside of Maine, or to what degree are you outside of Maine? Because I know
We're,
you are, but like,
yeah,
how
we're
big
in
is
about
that growing?
18 or 19 states.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, all the Northeast, and then Florida, North Carolina, we just launched, and then we have some distribution out west too.
What does that look like? Just like your beers are in their Hannaford equivalents, or are they actually in tap lines in restaurants?
Yeah, it's there. I mean, both. Yeah. I mean, we're fortunate to be a heavy chain brand. So, buyers from further away from New England are looking at data, and we kind of are able to translate from, we started in Maine and then grew to New Hampshire, then New York, and then, now this year, like Virginia is becoming the next play. And it's all really kind of data driven and by those chains. And then, yeah, in bars and restaurants, I mean, that's just constantly kind of a battle. And, everything's so localized now that, we do great, but I mean, we're not going to beat out the local craft brewery in North Carolina.
Yeah, to get in the restaurants in North Carolina. I get it.
Well,
So you're in Florida. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might sound like an idiot even saying this, but did I hear correctly that you're in Universal Studios, or
we were in
I don't know? What's
SeaWorld.
that? SeaWorld.
Yeah, we were in SeaWorld. This was our second season with them in the Taste of Seven Seas Food Festival.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Very cool. I knew
it's
there was some theme park angle down there.
we did a sales drive down there in April last year, and funny enough, when I went, it was the one day of the whole season they like were out of stock. so,
Sweet.
yeah, I was unable to drink Lone Pine in SeaWorld. But
That's awesome. How has the business changed in the past 8 years, or craft beer in general? Are we still on a upward trajectory? I mean, there are things, people falling out of the business. How are things changed?
sure. So yeah, when we decided to start Lone Pine in 2015, there were about 4,800 breweries in the US. And I remember this stat because I was like, holy crap. Because in 2016, when we opened, it went up another 1,000 to about almost 5,800.
Yeah.
And then in 2022, it's basically doubled from 2015 in the high 9,000. It's
No?
crazy. Yeah. Yeah. So the sheer just amount of players in the space is incredible. And especially in a place like Maine, those players, just like we kind of visited already, are all making great beer. They're all just performing well on the liquid side. But yeah, I mean, I see the industry definitely heading towards some type of consolidation because there's just so many,
Yeah.
so many breweries, so many challenges you face. And I think there's, a power in numbers is probably going to be a concept just in terms of having a larger market share in sales or buying power and sourcing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
All that stuff that's important.
yep. But and then tap rooms, I think there's going to be more and more gravitation to tap rooms too, where
Which it seems like there couldn't be any more tap rooms to think
yeah,
that there's even more of a demand.
exactly. Yeah. Yep. I think it's shelf space is just getting more and more competitive, and we're seeing it every day. And I just think tap rooms are a great source of revenue and profit, and you can, for the most part, kind of control the elements. So it's a bit
Yep.
of a safer way to enter the industry,
Yep.
where I think that'll be a bit more of a common model just moving forward.
Which kind of leads to the next thing I want to talk about. It's not necessarily a tap room, but you are opening a beer garden, or you have opened a beer garden in
Yep.
Orchard Beach.
Yep.
How long have you been wanting to do that for?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we considered that spot last year too, and we just wanted to kind of wait and see just how it evolved, because it was just, I mean, it was a wide open shell with a great idea by the owner of that land. And
Where's it located before you
yeah,
do?
so it's the Landmark restaurant in Old Orchard Beach. It's, yeah, it's just the big parking space area right there. And then there's a building next to it that we utilize too for a small kitchen. Yeah, I mean, we love it. We love the area. I mean, it's right next to where our hometown of
Oh, yeah.
Saco, so it's a perfect spot for us. And yeah, I mean, it went great. We couldn't ask for more on an opening weekend, especially with some rain coming in.
Saturday was a good day though, and what
Yeah,
all things considered. Sunday was obviously a mess, but Saturday was great. Pictures looked awesome. Looks fantastic. Got to get out there, but there isn't. I don't think of beer gardens, at least outside of. I don't know what there is. What is there in Portland? I can't think of specifics, but there's nothing like that south of Portland, right? Like
not too much. Yeah, I mean, we were versed in how to run a larger space like that because we had a beer garden in COVID in Portland.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
we're still working with the city of Portland on that one. Probably not something I want to express on
Yeah,
hopefully
well,
we'll
beer
get,
gardens are cool, man. People want to be outside drinking beers, so it's it's great to be thinking about different ways that you can utilize it. And
yeah, yep.
Orchard
And
one's
you
a
can
great one.
just, I mean, you walk 50 feet to the ocean. You can't ask for a better spot location.
And I guess we're 1 year further past COVID too, so now it seems like probably a safer bet to do it this year versus last. And
Yeah.
so is it open? What, just Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Is it open all the time, or what's the schedule like over there?
So we actually go 7 days a week starting
Yeah.
this Friday. Yep. Yep. It's our first venture into food too, which is really exciting. I mean, we're not doing a ton of it. We don't want to compete with the restaurants and bars we're already in because we have such a good business with them, but we think it's responsible to offer some food options,
I think
especially
so.
in that area. So yeah, so it's been fun. A good friend of ours in the industry came over to Lone Pine to run the food program, and it's been really fun to watch that evolve.
Nice. So is this like a 1 year trial run, or is this something that you have long term commitments for?
It'll be multi-year for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't see it not being a
Mhm.
kind of a year-round success. Hopefully, we plan to do a move to the inside too over the summer. So hopefully, be one of the few year-round spots in the area.
Now you'll have you'll have the tasting room in Portland, you have the space in Gorham.
Yep.
I've actually never been to the space in Gorham. That's primarily a brewing space, but is there a tap room?
Yeah. So there's a small, or not small. I mean, it's pretty sizable. There's a tap room there with a bunch of outdoor seating too.
Mhm.
We basically have three buildings there, and it's in our middle building that has the tap room, cooler space, and our offices. So yeah, it's a great spot for us. Portland's just such a high, high driver in terms of traffic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I remember going to that tap room, but I feel like that area has. I don't want to say you're one of the first ones, but you were earlier in there, right? Like in that
Oh,
whole area.
there was Urban Farm was the only like brewery on our street before
And
Rising.
now, what is there in that like small area? Was there 7, 8 different?
Yeah, I mean, it's close to that. I mean, we own a kombucha company on Washington Ave too.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, when we moved in there, I mean, the roads were completely dirt because they were doing some water work or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it's night and day, night and day. Yeah, we used to have to build like ramps for loading trucks to come up because they were doing so much construction there.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous, but we knew that there was a ton of planning for that area.
Mhm.
So we signed a pretty long lease because we just knew we were going to continue to grow in that space. And
At that point, yeah, it's been
yeah.
pretty fantastic. I didn't realize you own that kombucha place. It's right up on top, up right up the hill.
Yeah, root well.
Yeah.
Yep.
We were driving by it just the other day and wanting to stop by. So I have 3 kids. How many kids do you have again?
2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2. So my day drinking up in Portland is limited, so I got to find other times to get up there. What advice would you share with anybody thinking about getting into the brewing industry at this point?
Yeah. Just for a career, I would say if you're just looking to work in the brewing industry and you want to really explore it, I think the best advice I could give is to be flexible as to kind of how you enter the industry and keep an open mind. It's an industry that promotes from within and it's tight knit, and you never know what might kind of open itself up for a new career path. I think a great example that comes to mind when I say that is Lone Pine's national account manager started almost 5 years ago at Lone Pine on our canning line.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it's a relatively entry level job in the industry, but in little time, he showed interest in sales, had an incredible knack for it, and just now he very quickly rose into a very high level position in the company.
Mhm.
And I think things you can grow very quickly in the industry in general.
If you were going to start a brand from scratch,
Yeah.
there's many different ways to do it, but like for you guys, it sounded like focusing on that distribution was important.
Yeah.
Is it a tough time to start a business, like a brand new beer brand at this point? Or I guess I don't know if there's
Yeah,
other
I think
advice.
I think so. I think a lot of tides are shifting in retail, and there's wholesaler consolidation too. So yeah, I think it's an incredibly tough time to start. But at the same time, though, if I was to give myself advice, 7, 8 years ago, it would have been to not start too small, because we definitely did. We were chasing scale for years because we didn't want to spend a little more in the
Yep.
beginning. So yeah, you can always grow into something. You can't really just grow out of it. It's much harder to.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What's next for Lone Pine? Anything special coming up? New
Um,
initiatives? New...
yeah, I mean, the Old Orchard Beer Garden is huge for us. That's going to be a huge focus. We want to make sure we execute that and do it right. It's a big undertaking in general. There's a lot of back end logistics that go into it too. And then, yeah, I mean, we just launched, I think I said earlier, we launched Virginia and North Carolina over the past couple months. So that's been super exciting. We're, a successful chain brand in our packaging format on a national level. So we've kind of just been following these chain authorizations to these new states and
Yeah.
doing as much as we can in them. So those will be a big focus. And yeah, I think that's kind of really where we're at right now.
Well,
Yeah.
listen, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Love seeing all the success that you guys have. It's cool to think of what I consider a big main beer brand at this point. Was started by a couple Saco guys having a beer at Portland Pie, and then 8 years later, see all that you guys have accomplished. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. And I'll be sure to share all the info online. And I appreciate you coming on.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, thanks, bud. See ya.
Take care.